We are back on the Rational Boomer pod. It's not recording now. God damn it.
It's not. I was like, where's my button supposed to hit?
There we go. Now we're recording. Everything's just a little slow. It says the internet's unstable. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We are working in under duress in certain ways because I think that my internet connection maybe isn't as strong as it normally is or it was yesterday. But we're going to give it a hell of a shot because we've got Old Soul here. And if miracles can happen, it can happen when Old Soul is here. So, Old Soul, welcome back. I appreciate you coming on at this point.
Yeah, the background is a little different because my honey's girls have my tablet, so that's that's the background they put on when they were talking to their mom. And
Uh,
and the wife got me this hat. It says Kamala.
I like it. I like it. Um,
Yeah,
where are you right now?
I'm in the hospital with one of my house guests, and I told her mom because she didn't get in that long ago. So I was like, hey, if I can find a room to do the podcast, then I'll go do that for like a couple hours and then I'll come get you and we'll leave. And she said, okay.
Well,
So
I appreciate you stepping away from something that's probably more important than doing the podcast. I appreciate your loyalty there and your commitment. Can you talk about what's going on with the current situation you have with this new patient?
yeah, I don't know the name of what she has, but it's some kind of like psychosis where like she hears voices and stuff like that. And she was on a medication regimen. She just was, holding down a job, doing everything she was supposed to do. She meets her husband, they get married, and then they move. And when they moved, I guess because he never seen her in that mental state, her taking her medication and stuff wasn't a priority for him.
Hmm.
And she went off of her medications in order to get pregnant. And then once she did get pregnant, like, all of her stuff started coming back. And it's not, and she can't take her medications and be pregnant at the same time. But the state that they live in, they don't consider that as the life of the mother. And then the church, I'm laughing to keep from crying on this one. The pastor in their church was just like, well, it's just like 9 months. So can we just kind of like strap her to the bed or something? and
Wow.
then and then she can go back on her medications. But um, a friend of hers actually brought her here. And I got her from the airport. I'm like, what's wrong with her? And she was like, I had to give her something to like calm her down. And her friend was like, oh, I got it. Her plane was leaving in like 45 minutes. And she was like, but I have to go because my plane is taking me back home. So I don't know for sure if she was like sneaking and bringing her here or not. But she was like, oh, and by the way, here's her mom's number. Call her family. So that's what I did. And when I talked to her mom was like, as soon as I can get there, I'm going to get there. And she's here. I will say though that I like her mom, but she don't play that. And when I went to pick her mom up today, she was telling me about the husband. He moved her away from her family. We were telling him it's important for her to be on her medication. Like she was just going off. And so I was like, well, get that out of your system now. Because when we get to your daughter, she doesn't need to hear this. Like she's already going through enough.
Right.
Um, and that's exactly what she did. She was going off. So we'll see what happens. They said that she might have to go to an institution when she gets out of the hospital here, just to get her back regulated again. So when she came, her friend had gave us a list of her medications, and I don't know that type of stuff. And so
Right.
I gave them to my daughter, and my daughter was looking at the list, and she's like, "Holy shit, mom!" And then I was like, "What?" And I think one of them was like Hal something or whatever, and she was saying that that's for people with like severe schizophrenia and a couple of other things. And then I know I had heard the name, I want to say Seroquel before, like she was on some heavy duty stuff, but if that's what, like she was normal when she's on it, but as soon as she got off of it, it was something different. So my daughter was like, yeah, we just need to kind of like, maybe I'll stay up the first half of the night, you stay up the second half of the night and watch her. I was like, okay, cool, no problem. I went to bed and my daughter woke me up at like one something. And she was like, yeah, we have to take her to the hospital. And I'm like, oh, is she okay? She was like, go in the living room. I go into the living room she's sitting on the sofa having a full blown conversation with herself and like pulling her hair out. And so that's when we brought her here.
Wow.
But they did say that they would do the like keep her here, do the abortion for her here, and then they'll evaluate her and then decide where she goes after that. I'm trying not to get upset because it's hard to watch her struggle like that.
This is a
But her
story. This is a story we've never heard you tell before. This is a totally different circumstance than some of the other tragedies we've heard, but this is equally as tragic. I'm guessing she's not a young girl. She's adult.
yeah, she's an adult. She's I want to say 31. Yeah, she's
Okay.
31. Yeah. I don't have like her mom was like telling me about her and stuff like that because I don't know who she is when she's not in this state of mind. And I'm trying to be careful what I say about her husband because I'm thinking that he doesn't have any type of experience with mental health. And then I
Right.
know some of like the hardcore religious people, they don't really understand it. And so I'm thinking that maybe he just wasn't understanding how severe it could get or how much she needed this medication. But her family always said she's going to have a rainbow family because they knew she would be having to adopt. But I guess he just wanted his own, and he made that decision. So
Wow.
that was that.
Well, when you took this job of being able to put people up while they were getting reproductive health care, did they ever tell you, don't get personally involved in this stuff? But you can't help yourself. You always do get personally involved to the point where you literally adopted one of the girls that have come through, a wild child, of course. But
Mhm.
that's got to be terribly stressful for you, even though you're not in the situation. I know how emotional you get about these things. Can you continue doing that and keep your own well-being intact?
I think so.
You
And the
think
reason why
so?
I think so, yeah, because I know that when you're in the moment, you do what you have to do to like get through it. And then it'll be, once I don't have to do this anymore, at that point I'll have to process it. I don't think I have time to process it from day to day. So that's when I think it'll hit me after that. But right now, it's like I'm on a mission and I'm focused to help these women and these girls. But I haven't seen anything like this before where they are just mentally not there. I've never seen anybody needing an abortion because mentally it wasn't healthy for them.
Yeah, that's an unusual situation, and I give you all the credit for putting the time and effort into it. Not many people would have that kind of ability to stay strong and deal with these situations. Um, as we're recording this right now, it's about a little after 11 Eastern time, 11 p.m. And as we're speaking right now, we have Hurricane Milton hitting the coast of Florida and presumably going through the state of Florida. Uh, because of how sensitive and how compassionate you are, this had to be kind of weighing on your mind too, even though, well, it is political to a certain extent, but when it comes to people's lives, it's a much different situation.
Yeah, for the racial attacks, the sexist attacks, the lies, but I didn't think that it would be these type of lies because they are really getting people hurt and they don't care. And if they do care, they're not saying anything. So their silence is being complicit in this.
Yeah.
Um, I know, like I'm always paying attention to Florida because Ron DeSantis. So while this is going on, he is still trying to stop the abortion referendum from being on the ballot out there. And
Wow.
it's like, why are you worried about that? Like your citizens' lives are on the line, and that's what you're worried about. You would accept a phone call from Joe Biden, but you won't accept a phone call from Kamala. And it's just kind of like the inability to care about other people is just it's baffling to me. I don't get it. I didn't think that they would lie about a hurricane and people or a tornado and people getting the help that they need. I never thought that.
Well,
I never thought that.
it's
And
right in
that's
line with the
shocking me.
strategy, though. It's It's right in line with their strategy. I mean, I've said this from the beginning. They only have one strategy when it comes to elections. They have no substance. They have no policies. They have no real strategies. The only real strategy they do, the only thing they can do is discount and discredit their opponent. Now, he's taking calls from Biden because he's desperate. He needs the money. But he's not taking calls from Kamala because Kamala is the candidate. And by taking a call from Kamala and accepting whatever help she can offer is going to be seen by the Republicans as he's being weak. This is all about political political. It's all political reasons that they make any decision. We can't make the libtards look good. They have to talk to Joe Biden, but they won't talk to Kamala because um, it might make them look weak against their opponent. And it's sad they're willing to put people's lives at risk just for political expediency, and it's fucking troubling. These are some sick fucking people if that's the extent you go to.
I thought that political warfare would be you're against abortion, but you had an abortion in college.
Yeah.
I thought political warfare would be, but what about your side baby that you don't talk about? Like, what about your mistress? Like, I thought that's what political warfare was, but I never thought it was something like, don't ask for help because if FEMA gives you money, it's not them giving it to you, it's a loan. I never thought that. I never thought them saying the government isn't here, you're going to be stranded, you're on your own. I heard one of the most egregious lies come from Laura Trump when she said on national television and said that they saw dead babies floating in the water
Oh,
and nobody
Jesus Christ.
and nobody was helping with those babies. I don't know if you saw that interview or not,
No, I
but
did
that's
not.
on national television. I think it was like on one of the Sunday shows. I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah,
And the person that was interviewing her said, "Oh, well, where did you see that at?" And then she just like moved on to the next thing. But you
of
would sit
course.
here on national television and you would say something like that with no care in the world how big of a lie that is and how that would implement people or impact people. It's just that there's no limit to their lives.
See,
It's
I don't understand how they think this is going to work because they're saying Joe Biden's doing nothing, which is the opposite of the truth. But the
yeah,
people there are getting the help. So they're certainly not selling the people in Florida or North Carolina that they're not getting help because they're getting help. Are they then trying to sell the rest of the country that Joe Biden is incompetent or unwilling to help people in red states? I mean, it's just such a ridiculous lie.
yeah.
And
But
it's all because it came from Donald Trump first, and these people just start supporting him. And Donald Trump comes up with the most ridiculous, stupid fucking lies you can possibly imagine.
well, I mean, they do this anyway. I volunteered with someone when I was in Pennsylvania, and she stated that she literally had to put her parents on a plane and fly to Chicago so that they could see that Chicago was not burning to the ground, so
Wow.
that they could see that it wasn't riots in the street everywhere, so that they could see people are not just getting mugged in broad daylight. You're not going to see anybody running out of CVS with a refrigerator packed on their back like Trump says, right? Like she was like, I put my parents on a plane and I took them there. And then the crazy part about it is she said that before they left, her father went online to buy a bulletproof vest to put in
Wow.
the luggage and take with him to Chicago. That's how scared he was. And she said once they got there, it's kind of like not like they just imagined this like fire and brim hellscape or something. Like that's what they were imagining.
Right.
And that was the only way that she could prove to them that Donald Trump, Fox News, I guess they lived in like this little bubble, that all of that is a lie. It's all a lie. And she had to take them to that state to prove that to them. I was
When
like,
when they start lying to this extent, don't you feel like it's an act of desperation? I mean, it's so ridiculous that no one's going to buy it, and they just keep pushing it. They keep doubling down, even though it's not working. This is truly an act of desperation at this point.
yeah, I think that they're trying to do something similar when they say the towns are hellscapes and all of this other kind of stuff that's going on. Like the right typically runs with that. They believe it. So they're trying to do that, but they're trying to do it on a natural disaster type of level. But the only thing about it is this is happening to people in red areas. This is happening to their supporters. So like
Right.
if this was happening in a blue state, they would believe it because they're not there to experience it firsthand. Like you can say all this stuff about Chicago, people in Louisiana and Oklahoma, they're going to believe it because they don't have any ties to blue states, right?
Yeah.
But they don't understand, like it doesn't work that same way here because you're telling them something that's happening, but they're in that spot that you're telling them. They can go outside and see that that's not what it is. They can actually. I think people are really trying to get the word out there that what they're saying about FEMA isn't true. That they don't have to pay that money back. I think there were some people believing that if FEMA, this is so stupid, if they actually paid for the repairs on your home, then they would have the deed to your home until like you paid it back or something. Like there's so many crazy rumors that's going on. I will say though that I won't let the Biden administration off of the hook completely because I do think that one of the things that they should be doing is like cutting off the disinformation or cutting off those lies with just simple press briefings. So you remember like when we had COVID, Donald Trump, he got up there every day on a podium, told his BS lies, and then kept it pushing. I do think that they need to have like daily briefings on the hurricanes. Just have like somebody go out there to the podium every day. This is what's going on. This is what we're doing. This is who you call for resources. Have a couple of people in the press pool, ask some questions, and then that would kind of like hedge off those lies. Why they're not doing that, I don't know. But I do
Well,
think to do
I
that.
don't know if you saw it or not, but Joe Biden did a press conference yesterday, and
Oh, I didn't see
yeah, he was talking about
the
the
lies.
hurricane, and then he was talking about the lies that Donald Trump was telling, and
Yeah.
they asked him, why do you think he's doing it? And he seemed kind of nonplussed by it. I don't know, but he says, I know this. It's un-American to do the things he's doing by putting people in jeopardy and misinforming people. And he said that a couple of times. And I think you're right. They need to step up and get in the narrative and keep repeating this over and over again so people truly understand. Again, when it comes down to why they're doing this, I think Joe Biden knows why, because that's all they have. They're losing big going toward November 5th. So they got to try to find some way to discredit Kamala Harris. And this is all they've got. This is how weak it is. This is the only thing they can attack because, they aren't talking about immigration right now. They're not talking about the economy because none of that shit is working anymore. So they have to take the next thing to scare people. And I don't think that's working really well at this point either.
You lie without throwing immigrants under the bus because I know you've heard they're like, oh, they're giving
We're having a little trouble with the internet right now. Let's see. Let it catch up.
but I don't know why they just go in and tell everyone, hey, you guys get over there. I need the immigrants to come.
I'm sorry, old soul. We're still having trouble with the internet. I don't know what the fuck is going on here. But we'll try to get it to catch up.
Are you able to see?
Yeah, you're running kind of slow, old soul. I'm not getting what you're saying. So let's just keep trying here and see what happens. Hmm.
Can you hear?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
I don't. Even though you're trying to, this is where my frustration comes in at, is how he hires people like to put the union shirts on and go to his rallies
Right.
instead of like hiring union people to come to or instead of hiring fake union workers, why not go and talk to the real union workers. Just take a camera crew with you. If your policies are unpopular, why not try and talk to the people and curtail your policies in a way that where they would want to vote for you? Why do you have to stop them from voting?
Well, clearly he's afraid of being fact checked. That's a big problem for him, which seems strange. If you're telling the truth, why would being fact checked be a problem? He always complains about, well, they never fact check Kamala. Well, Kamala's not fucking lying. Um,
Yeah.
so Donald Trump is just terrified right now. I think he's spinning around in circles, knowing what's coming, and he's trying to do anything to save himself. Unfortunately, there's nothing he can do.
The fact checking thing, I think that's just the media has allowed them to get away with that.
Absolutely.
Because what they're basically saying is, I can't do an interview, I can't do a debate, I can't talk to anyone unless I can lie.
Right.
And when you tell them, I'm going to fact check you and you're not going to be able to lie, then they run and say, oh, this is censorship. Because that's what the whole Elon Musk, that's what his whole spiel was about, is censorship. No,
Right.
what they're saying is your lies are dangerous, your lies are harmful, your lies are un-American, and we are not going to push that crap out there. And they said, well, it's censorship. I should be able to say whatever the heck it is that I want to say with absolutely zero consequences to it.
Well,
And it's when you think about that's not even true because I know you've seen those Trump campaign documents that got leaked. When they sent them to the Harris campaign, she was just like, "Nope, we're not doing that." And so the hackers actually was trying to post it on X, and Elon Musk blocked that. So why is that not censorship? And it's just so insane to me that they would stoop this low for power.
well, I think, and this is kind of standing up for Elon Musk. Even much as I don't like it, I question whether he's really that smart a man, given all the things he's done. I think he's in desperation mode too. But when people talk about censorship, I guess the Republicans don't understand how censorship works. If you have a platform, a personal platform, and you don't want something on that platform, you have every right to do that. That is not censorship. Censorship comes into play when the government stops you from saying it. But if you're on Twitter, if you're on this podcast and I don't like what you're saying and I shut you down, that's not censorship. That's just producing your own personal product. And you can't call somebody out for censorship. So if you're on CBS News or CNN, they can do whatever they want. I mean, that's you would think the Republicans would be all on board with that. That's free market and all that shit. Um, but he'll yell in censorship, and the dumb people in this country will believe that that's wrong and that they're just trying to keep him quiet. This is where Donald Trump has
Yeah.
won. He just got loud and proud and kept loud, being loud. And if they'd shut him down like they should have in 2015, we wouldn't be going through this. But now he's having problems with getting fact checked. After 8 years of not getting fact checked, he's like a fucking spoiled child who's gotten away with it, and now doesn't understand why he can't.
Yeah, I think like with Musk, he says that he's a free speech absolutist, but that's not true because when it is something negative against Trump, it's blocked.
Right.
He boosts the algorithm for right wingers on his platform. He allows hate speech, but he doesn't allow anyone to combat that. You know what I mean? It's just for me, you can clearly tell what he's trying to do. And I don't know why. I think with Elon Musk, I think he made it to like billionaire status. And maybe he wondered to himself why he doesn't have any authentic friends. Well, because you're a bit of a jerk, first of all. But I think that he thought that maybe his money, his influence, and his position would gain him friends. But he doesn't understand that in order to get a friend, you have to be a friend, and he doesn't know how to do that. And I think that Donald Trump and the MAGA, they kind of like welcome him and make him feel like they're his friends. And that's why he's gravitating over there because that's outside of that, he's just like a very lonely person. Nobody laughs at his jokes unless he pays them to do so. So
Well,
I think
he's
he's insecure. And I think he got a bad drug habit. Like I know tweakers when I see one. He has a bad drug habit.
Yeah, yeah,
Horrible.
I think you're probably right. He's weird at the core. Um, you got to wonder what's going to happen to Elon Musk. Prior to Donald Trump, he was thought of the smartest guy, the richest guy, the great innovator. Everybody looked up to him. But then he bet on the horse Donald Trump, and he bet on the wrong horse. He bet on the wrong horse. And he's got to be smart enough to know that now, but he keeps doubling down. It's something you said earlier on, and I kind of pushed it aside because it sounded almost like a conspiracy theory, something you'd heard. But now, as we get closer to this, you wonder why he keeps doubling down when Donald Trump keeps losing. And now a lot of people are saying what you once said is that the goal is to get the election won on the back of Donald Trump, but knowing
Yeah.
Donald Trump won't last through the next 4 years, he might not last through the next year. The goal is to get JD Vance as the president because he's got the evangelical connections and the tech bro connections. These big tech bros want to have some control over this country. And now it doesn't sound so fucking crazy.
Mm-mm. And like, if that were to be the instance, I don't think that Donald Trump would leave voluntarily. I do think that he's underestimate. Well, I don't want to say underestimating. I just don't think that he has the faculties right now to not um, see the setup that's going on against him. Because part of the reason that they picked JD Vance was because of his age.
Right.
If they could get Trump out and they can put a 40-year-old in, then he could just rule over for however long. You don't have to worry about somebody aging or passing in their sleep or anything like that. And I think that's part of when they started looking at judges. That's one of the things that they were going after. We want young judges so that we have people in positions for the next like generation or two. You know what I mean? So that's what they're going for, young judges. They're going for a young DP. So, and I guarantee you, if they were to get rid of Trump, which I'm pretty sure they would do, his VP, if he picked one, would be just as young, if not younger.
Yeah.
And then there's people, when I keep hearing them say things like, Donald Trump, he's an idiot. He can never pull this off. All this other kind of stuff. And I will say, yeah, I agree with you on that. But look at the people he surrounds himself with.
Yeah.
Look at the people that he would put in his administration. Look at the people that he would make head of the CIA, the FBI, the Roger Stones of the world. So if you're thinking Donald Trump is an idiot and him surrounding himself with multiple devils and evil people, not only are they going to influence him, but they are the ones that's going to be making these decisions and also bringing these deranged ideas to the table. So it's not just about Trump, it's about the whole gobble of people that he has around him that should be concerning as well. So I don't like when people say he's an idiot, he can't pull it off. Well, look at the people around him. They are not idiots and they can pull it off.
Well, I think you're right about that. I think Donald Trump is a useful idiot. I think
Mm-hmm.
when he was first running for president, they go, now he'll never make it. But then when he did make it, they came to the realization that the real evil fucks around him realized he's easily manipulated. You can make him believe what you want him to believe, and then he will do the bidding because he's the president. That's really why we're in this situation because Donald Trump is like clay. Whoever pats him on the ass and says he's a great guy, he's going to follow that lead and do whatever he tells them, like overturning Roe v. Wade. Overturning Roe v. Wade was the fucking dumbest thing in the world to do for an upcoming election. Taking away
Yeah.
50% of constitutional rights away from 50% of the public, pissing off 75% of the country. How is that a good idea for a fucking election? It doesn't work.
Not only that, but Donald Trump doesn't care about abortion. He doesn't care
He
about
doesn't
any
give a
of that.
shit. No.
No, he doesn't care. And that, like, that's part of the problem. His instincts was, hey, this is wrong. This is unpopular. And I've heard, like, in the beginning, he would say this. He would say, yes, we need to do this, that, and the third, but we also need to win elections. He's said that. So he knew better at that time that this was a bad idea. However, where was the money coming from? Who was the person keeping him in office? Who was propping him up? That's where it came from. So he cannot be trusted to make his own like decisions and choices. And he dang sure can't be trusted to decipher between what's good for the country and what's bad for the country. That is just not going to happen with him. He is so dangerous, and I don't get why people are still following him. I do know it's not that many anymore, but
Yeah. Well,
I'm kind of because someone I volunteer with in Pennsylvania was telling me how bad his rally was. I haven't watched the videos yet, but I know that there's already clips circulating out there.
yeah, he's having trouble pulling a crowd, even though he'll lie about it. But you make a good point. Who's supporting him? Who's giving him money? Bob Woodward has a book coming out. Woodward, the reporter of Watergate fame and an author, and some revelations have come out of this book even before it has been published. And one of the things, Donald Trump kept saying, Russia, 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 it's a hoax. The Mueller report exonerated him. None of that is true. In the Mueller report, he was found essentially guilty of obstruction of justice on 10 occasions. The only reason he wasn't indicted because he was a sitting president. But
Yeah.
Bob Woodward has come out and said that he talked to Donald Trump a number of times while he was president. And on at least 7 occasions, he had to leave the room to take a private phone call with Vladimir Putin. Now, if you're president of the United States, that shit just does not happen. World
Yeah.
leaders don't talk amongst themselves without other people around writing transcripts or advising or doing that. But for some reason, Donald Trump needed to do it with privacy. And that is very suspicious. We've seen him do it before. Once we heard about it, during the election. But since then, we're finding out that it was a regular contact with Vladimir Putin during his presidency. That says a lot. That is fucking troubling.
Not only that, but that's 7 occasions that we know of.
Yeah.
Bob Woodward wasn't around him 24/7. I will say though, one thing about Bob Woodward that it irks me to my core
Okay.
is that he doesn't come out with any type of information to warn the American public, to let us know what's going on, to sound the alarm on how dangerous this man is. He only uses the information when it's time for him to write a book. And that pisses me off. I know like his claim to fame and I know his role in Watergate and I know his legacy, his journalism. I understand that. I get that. But this would be the equivalent of him knowing about Watergate, not saying anything, just keeping everything to himself. And then once it's time for him to write a book, after the president is already out of office, now he wants to write a book. Okay, now he's going to start talking about Watergate. Now he's going to put this information out there to the public. It's 4 years later.
Yeah.
I don't like him.
No,
I understand his legacy, but for me, when we were in COVID, we had hundreds of people dying a day, 1,000 people dying a week. It's like every time you turn around, it was like a 9/11 in one day.
right.
And he had on tape Donald Trump saying how dangerous this is, him
Right.
saying this is far worse than the flu, him saying this is airborne. And yet he sat at home, he watched that television screen like the rest of us, and he heard Donald Trump tell the American people, as all of these people were dying, that it's just going to go away when the weather changes. Maybe you could just shoot some bleach up your arm, or maybe you could take some horse dewormer or something. He sat there and he watched it happen. And he said absolutely nothing until it was time for him to write a damn book.
I
That
agree
is
with
so
you.
disgusting. These private phone calls and all of this other crap that he has going on with Putin. He didn't feel it important to tell the American people that until it was time for him to write another book.
Yeah, that
I'm
is pretty bullshit.
I cannot stand that man because it just,
I
I
don't
know
blame
he's
you.
credible, but at the same time, it's unethical that he is doing it like this. And
Well,
I just don't like that.
he's like
Ugh.
everybody else in Washington, D.C. It's all about him. It's all about his benefit and all about his making money and fame and whatever. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, here's a guy that was nobody and then he got famous at Watergate and He's probably tainted to a certain extent too. This information should have gotten out long, long ago. And you're absolutely right about that. There was another revelation in what Bob Woodward put out. I don't know if you heard this one, and it was regarding Vladimir Putin. You remember back during COVID when everything was going so badly, and then we heard there was going to be some tests available, but then nobody could get a test. But Donald Trump went around and gathered up some tests and sent them directly to Vladimir Putin, essentially our enemy. Now, people will say, well, he's not our enemy. He's attacking Ukraine and we're helping Ukraine fight against him. For all intents and purposes, he is our fucking enemy. He's always been our enemy. And Donald Trump is pulling together COVID tests, something he said didn't exist, and sending them to his buddy Vladimir Putin when there were people in this country absolutely desperate to get a hold of some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think like people have been getting it confused. Like they're thinking that this was like those at-home kits. But from my understanding, this was before the at-home kits. This was like right at the beginning when people were like driving around everywhere trying to find a location where they can test. Well, they did have some kind of like portable testing things that they had like little boxes or something that they were
Right,
using,
right,
which was like updated technology. And at that point, it was like the quickest and the fastest way to get your results. You had hospitals looking for that equipment because it was testing equipment. It wasn't like an at home kit. They were looking for that equipment because they had freezers stacked with dead bodies.
right.
And Donald Trump was saying, hey, we don't need to. That's the most egregious part about this, is because Donald Trump was telling the American people, hey, we don't need to test right now. The only reason that our numbers are up is because we're testing. Don't test, don't test, don't test. Don't go looking for tests. Stop, stop, stop the testing. And then he turns around and he sends testing supplies to Putin.
Well, and why did he want the testing to stop? Because he didn't want people to think that the epidemic was a big deal. The more you test, he said it, the more you test, the more sick people you find. Well, yeah, motherfucker, that's the point of it. But the more people that got sick and the more people that died, in his mind, he figured, well, that's going to work against me in the election. So better to just not talk about it. And that was the issue with Donald Trump.
That is just, I remember when he was doing that and I used to scream at the television all the time, idiot. If you find out who is infected, you can isolate those people and it'll reduce the spread.
Right.
But knowing who's infected and just let everybody walk around and be nilly-willy, not knowing who's infected and who's not, that's how it spreads. But he is so stupid that that did not cross his mind. It didn't cross his mind at all.
No,
And it infuriates me that he is even allowed to run right now. It infuriates me that the Justice Department let him get away with that. It's infuriating to me that Bob Woodward had this information and sat on it. It's just kind of like I always feel like as Americans, we are on our own.
don't
But
you don't you feel
it,
like don't you feel like the media, even Bob Woodward for that matter, the media, the politicians, whether they be Democrat or Republican, the
yeah,
judicial system with Merrick Garland, it seems like every motherfucking one of them has failed this country. I mean, horribly failed this country. And that's why we're in the fix we're in now.
yeah, they have time and time again, and they continue to do it. Because even though Bob Woodward sat on this information, the documents case in Mar-a-Lago, the DOJ sat on that too. The only reason Trump is the way that he is because he is allowed to be that way. It's not, you can clearly see that, yeah, he can go to trial, he can get convicted, he can do that. They can do it. What they choose is not to do it, which is insane to me because they could do it, they just choose not to. And
Yeah.
for me, that's the most frustrating part about that, is because I don't want to hear that crap about, no one person is above the law. Because I think that there needs to be a caveat to that. Nobody is above the law unless you're running for president or unless you're the sitting president of the United States. Because that that doesn't even apply. And I could probably add a couple more people in that column too, unless you're a billionaire, unless you're a millionaire, unless you know people in high places, unless your parents are government officials. Like you can add the people who are above the law to that. I don't even want to hear that saying anymore because it's BS.
Or a Republican sitting member of Congress. We know
Oh,
Democrats can go to jail. Robert Menendez did go to jail or will go to jail. He was convicted. But the Republicans, it's hands off. Boy, we got an election here. We got to be worried. We don't want to look too political. And you've got people running around roughshod that are dyed in the wool fucking criminals.
I think Republicans are kind of like hands off, period. They
Yeah.
don't, it's kind of like when there's things that's just like too egregious, you don't hear from them. You don't hear from them at all. But if it's something that they feel like they can kind of like talk around, then you'll hear them making the rounds on the news outlets, spewing these stupid talking points. But when they know that they are dead to water, the crickets, you don't hear nothing from them. You don't hear anybody sitting in Republican side talking about Donald Trump and these Putin phone calls, but you will hear them sit there and say, well, Biden, they won't say that Trump lost the election. They won't say that Biden is the president. They'll just say, well, Biden's been in office for almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
It's just the craziest thing. They have these spins and these talking points, but when they don't have a way to spin it, they just go quiet and they don't say anything about that
And
at all.
the only reason they don't own up to the fact that Donald Trump lost is because they're afraid of pissing off Donald Trump. He's like that crazy ex girlfriend or boyfriend. You don't know what the fuck he's going to do. You don't know what he's going to say. And they're terrified of him. It's a fucking group of cowards. And until Donald Trump is taken down, then you'll start people saying, oh, yeah, I never liked him. I didn't want to do it. I was just afraid of this. I'm sorry, that doesn't give you a pass. If you spend all this time supporting Donald Trump and you walk away from him after the election, fuck you. As far as I'm concerned, you're as bad as he is.
Yeah, you see, like you can stand up to Donald Trump. Liz Cheney, Adam Kissinger, they're all still alive. Brian Kemp right now, Donald Trump is, oh yeah, he's doing a great job. He's doing
Yeah.
a really, really good job. Why? Because he knows when this election happens and he loses, that he is going to have to try to get Kemp on his side to do whatever. So he's out there making his little rounds. Oh, he's doing a great job. He's handling this perfectly because he knows that he's going to need something from Kemp.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody else, he has no problem talking trash about him. They don't understand that you're only good in Donald Trump's eyes as long as he can see that he can use you or get something from you. And
Absolutely.
there's no exceptions to that rule. There's so many people. Rudy Giuliani, as for instance, he is going through it right now.
He
Donald Trump
is.
stiffed him out of a $2 million bill and just kept it pushing. It just completely left this man stranded. Why anybody thinks they'll be the exception is beyond me. Like, I see it in relationships. Like, he cheated on his last three girlfriends. What make you think he's not going to cheat on you? It's kind of like the same thing. They don't understand that there is a pattern here. There's no exception to the rules for anybody. He was in his court. He was sitting there like low key throwing his sons under the bus. And you think he gonna be good to you? Get the heck out of here.
People with Donald Trump remind me of the girls that think they can change the bad boy or
Mm-hmm.
the guys that can change the crazy girls.
Yeah.
And they keep doing it and they keep doing it and they keep failing. It just makes no sense. I tell you what, old soul, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is with us. We have some intermittent problems with the internet. We apologize for that, but we're fucking powering through this. We've got a hurricane pounding on Florida right now. I'm in southern Georgia. I'm just waiting to see if we get any after effects from it or we're outside the cone, so it shouldn't be, but I've never been in a hurricane before and I don't want to be, so I'm hoping that we don't see anything like that here so far. So
have you
good.
spoken to have you spoken to Will? How's he doing?
Will in Georgia? Well, he's further north than I am, so I'm sure he's fine. I'm
Okay.
sure Will's fine. Um, we're right in the southeast corner, right where a hurricane is passing by. We're not, The hurricane doesn't come as high as Savannah. There might be some clouds and rain and stuff like that, but
I have a
regard,
question.
yeah.
How far do you think this is going to continue with the extreme weather events before Republicans realize climate change is real? I do know in Florida, DeSantis removed climate change from like books, any type of like government paperwork and stuff like that. They're not even allowed to say it or read it, let alone acknowledge it. So I was just trying to see, what is it going to take?
Well, I don't know that the politicians will ever change their attitude about this because then they'd be woke. But I've always said that some people don't react to shit until it bites them in the ass. And when a Cat 3 or Cat 4 hurricane goes through the state after another hurricane went up the state, and now there's a third one that may be coming through, you would think eventually when people have suffered enough, they're going, wait a fucking minute. The people of Florida are going to have to act. They're going to have to speak up. They put
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis in power. They put Rick Scott in power. They put the Republican legislature. They have to make some decisions. If they're tired of the bullshit, they're going to have to replace these people. And let's hope 2024 is the start of that.
I hope so. And then I don't know how many people that you have listening, or if they know people who um, don't really think that it's a problem and they want to call themselves conservatives. It's cheaper to have a solution to the problem versus spending billions of dollars trying to deal with it. I don't know how that's fiscal responsible. But also, the Wild Child wrote a paper recently on mass migration, and I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of with that paper. A big chunk of that paper was saying that if the extreme weather events keep going at this rate, there's going to be certain cities and states that's just inhabitable. So they're not going to have a choice but to migrate to other states.
Right.
It was a really good paper. I didn't really like think about it like that until I actually read it, and it is true. Because it's
Well,
like, how many times can a hurricane or a tornado come and flood your house out and cause all of this damage before people start to migrate to other areas? I hadn't thought about that before, but it has me thinking, when are they going to acknowledge this? And I would hate for it to come down to, okay, so many people, it's mass migration. Everybody has to move to, other states, other parts of the country because you can't live here anymore. That's how bad it is. So I hope it doesn't get down to that point. But I'm actually starting to think that maybe that's what it'll take. Well, for, like you said, politicians, but hopefully the citizens, they see it differently. I hope.
well, that it's interesting you should bring that up because I was watching on TikTok and there's a big creator there. He's a young guy, but he's political. I think he goes by My Dude, but he's a very smart guy. And he was looking at Florida and he said the very same thing. With this climate change, we've had now the second hurricane within a couple of weeks go through this area, and there may be a third one. He said that he thought, as well as Wild Child, is if you keep getting hurricanes hitting like Coral Gables over and over again, there's going to come a point where you say it's just no point in rebuilding it. Why would we rebuild it? And then that
Yeah.
would displace all the people that are living in that city or any number of cities in Florida or wherever this is happening. That is, I
Yeah.
think that's a real concern. I think Wild Child hits the nail on the head with that because what are you going to do if you get hit with 3 or 4 hurricanes a fucking year? What's the point of building it up and even living there and risking your life and risking your property? People change what they do based on, where they live and what's happening. And that is a problem for Florida. They're kind of out there on their own and they're getting hit a lot.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that maybe if the politicians saw it as, if people start leaving this state, or, we can't keep rebuilding, we can't live here any longer, they'll lose their position of power. So I know they're not going to look at it as like a humanitarian side of it and see what it's doing
No.
to the citizens, but maybe if they looked at it in their own self interest. Like, well, I'm pretty cool. I have a seat in Congress here. I have a position of power here. I get to control people and tell them what to do. I'm not going to be able to do that if I have to if I have to flee to New York or God forbid Nevada or something like that.
Or
Maybe
no
if they look,
people to elect you because they're gone.
yeah, maybe if they looked at it from a selfish point, they'll change their mind. But I was just kind of saying, like, dang, another Florida getting hit again? Like, when are they going to acknowledge it? But I think, like you said, it's going to have to be up to the people. So if you're in Florida and you're listening, y'all need to step up.
You need to step up and at least try to do something to save your home and save your property from this happening on a regular basis. And we're seeing that it is happening. I mean, this particular hurricane coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, hitting the west side of Florida. You know when the last time this happened, this kind of hurricane?
But
1921, over 100 years ago. It hasn't happened in 100 years. So something fucking weird going on.
yeah, and I mean, and they're like rapid. They're like throwing a pebble in a lake or something. Like it just every time there's a ripple, it's like there's another storm that's coming. It's just crazy to me. Like we freak out when we get snow in the valley. Of course, Reno is different, but if we get snow in the valley, which we have gotten like the past couple of winters, but out here it's not even cold yet. It should be cold in October, but we're not cold yet. But hopefully they won't allow it to get to that point to where people are fleeing before they try to do something about it.
Yeah, well, that's why we need to vote out the Democrats, eradicate them from, or vote out the Republicans, eradicate them from Congress, eradicate them from the White House, and try to get some semblance of intelligence going on. We're dealing with people that are just spewing things that they think will benefit them at the ballot box and don't give a fuck about the country. I wanted to bring something up. You mentioned judges a while back. And when we
Mhm.
talk about the Supreme Court, we talk a lot about Clarence Thomas, and we talk about Sam Alito and even the Chief Justice. But one person we haven't talked a lot about because he's been kind of benign since he's been in the Supreme Court. Not totally. He's been kind of a dipshit too, but we're talking about Brett Kavanaugh. And some
Mhm.
interesting information came out about Brett Kavanaugh, and this came from Sheldon Whitehouse from Congress. He's one of the brightest guys when it comes to. He's a very smart guy. I like Sheldon Whitehouse. If he wasn't an old white man, I'd say he should be president, but he's an old white man. But he's saying that when the confirmation was going on with Brett Kavanaugh, it was
I was just
believed. Well, it was believed that the FBI did a full investigation on Kavanaugh, and it
yeah.
turns out there was no investigation on Kavanaugh, and that
Mhm.
Donald Trump is the one that tried to stop or did stop it. And then when the Republicans decided to vote on it, they said, "Well, the FBI cleared them, so we're good." But the FBI never cleared them, and this is coming to the surface now, and
Yeah.
people are wondering, is that going to turn into something? It's not going to turn into something until after Kamala becomes inaugurated as president. But that seriously has to be looked at. We need an actual investigation into this fucking clown who was placed in the Supreme Court by Donald Trump.
Not I've heard people say that, the Republicans, they didn't have the information, so that's why they voted for him. I think that's giving them too much credit. I think if they knew, they would
I
have still
agree.
voted. Especially when you have Mitch McConnell at that point on his game. Um, I think for me, the worst part about this is there was over 2,400 tips about his sexual misconduct all the way through law school. So this wasn't just like a kid in high school or college. Some of those tips were from him in law school when he
Right.
was doing this. And this is assaulting women. And this is a man who is making decisions about a woman's autonomy over her own body.
Right.
It's so gross. It's so, so gross. I know that he wouldn't recuse himself and say, yeah, I have a past of assaulting women, so I'm just going to step aside on this one.
Now,
I know he wouldn't do that, but he is one of the last people on this planet that should be making decisions for us as women. And I think that's the most disturbing part about it.
Well, that investigation, given that it wasn't done, needs to be done even after the fact. Question is, will they do that? I think it has a lot to depend on who Kamala Harris puts in as the AG. Merrick Garland will never fucking do it. He won't
No.
do shit. He's too tentative about everything, and that's why he needs to go and somebody else needs to. But everybody talks about, are they going to do something about the Supreme Court? Are they going to stack the court? Or are they going to try to impeach people? Impeaching Supreme Court justices is tough. Probably won't go that way. They can try to stack the court if they can get rid of the filibuster. And that's a big if. I think what they need to do is let the DOJ run wild on these fuckers that are criminals. Clarence Thomas, number one. Sam Alito, number two. Maybe John Roberts, number three. And certainly Brett Kavanaugh needs an investigation. And if we find out that some things were hinky about him that were hidden from us, that has to be addressed. There may be some legal ramifications for some of the Supreme Court justices. They're not a president, so they're not fucking immune.
Yeah, and there is, for me, no excuse not to, because there is a paper trail.
Yeah,
If you have the FBI taking this information and then it just disappearing in the White House somewhere, there's a paper trail there.
right.
These, I don't know what the heck is going on with I don't know if they're just so caught up in their own like power and they feel that they're untouchable, but the sloppiness of their crimes and misdeeds, to me, it's astonishing. It is astonishing how sloppy they were. I'm starting to think that they didn't even care about getting caught because they knew that they had the DOJ in their pocket. And so they're like, hey, we don't really care. Like, even when Trump was talking to Putin, and Putin was like, hey, don't tell anybody you sent me this equipment. And Donald Trump was like, I don't care, because he knew nothing would happen to him. And so I know that there is evidence, there is a paper trail, and those 2,400 tips that they got, that hasn't just disappeared and gone poof into the night. Like, these are
Right.
not the type of people that would put that paper in a fireplace and light it up. That's not who they are. They need to dig that up and they need to hold him accountable for that.
Well, I think
I
I, th-
think,
I think the Supreme Court justices are a lot like Donald Trump. They've
yeah.
been allowed to get away with shit for fucking decades.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just arrogant enough to think that they'll never get caught, that they have total impunity to do whatever the fuck they want. That's how they think. They think they're above it all, that they're more important than other people. And that has to be changed. So these people have to be held accountable. And it's going to be a big test for Kamala Harris when she becomes president, if she's going to go after these people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be pushing it hard because that needs to be done if we want to save democracy.
Yeah, I was seeing these two guys talk. They're like an expert in this field. I can't remember all of the judges' names or all, but I do remember that Letitia James was on like Kamala Harris's short list to be in Merrick Garland's position. But there were like the other ones, I have to like dig into them to see what their background is. But the way that they were talking, these are like Glenn Kirshner type of people. Like, they're not going to sit back and just watch this happen. They're just going to go after them. Whatever happens, happen. And I do think that's what we need. But I am a fan of impeaching the justices, because even though, like, if it fails, if it doesn't go through or whatever, at least the American people will know what
Yeah,
has been happening and what they did. And like, you have to put these people on blast. If you don't feel that you can hold them accountable, put them on blast, put the information out there. We just saw that happen with Donald Trump. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you need to know which information is admissible and what's not. Sure, I'm just going to put it all out there. And
right.
then you see what happened. And I do think that we could do that with the judges. So even if you feel it's not going anywhere, at least put it out there so that the American people know what's going on. I don't think that there's any, I don't think they have any shame to where they would quit. But I do think if we put enough pressure on Congress, I do think that they may be persuaded to act. And I think that just depends on what the ratios are in the House and the Senate.
Well, I read a story that said that John Roberts, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, has been kind of shaken by the backlash from this immunity decision. Really, motherfucker? You're surprised by this that people didn't take it well? Um, I think some of the Supreme Court, especially John Robert, who doesn't do jack shit, is
Right.
starting to see the writing on the wall. They're starting to see that Kamala's going to win, and they're starting
Yeah.
to see that people are having a lot of questions about these fuckers.
Yeah. I've never really, outside of true crime, I've never paid the Supreme Court like any attention like that. I just kind of assumed that, they kept the balance. I didn't look at them as Republicans and Democrats. I just looked at them as like, hey, they're keeping the balance or blah, blah, blah. But this is completely different. It's not, it just kind of like, it popped my bubble when it came to the highest court in the land
Yeah,
and the respect that we had for them because I don't respect them and they don't deserve it. And when people say illegitimate when they're talking about the Supreme Court, that's exactly what it is. They lied during confirmation hearings. They have private fundraisers that they do with like Heritage Foundation and all of those type of people. So you know that this is why they're doing what they're doing. They're just another extension of the Trump administration. And I do think they need to be held accountable. And I think they need to get their butts off of the bench. They shouldn't be there.
absolutely. And, to be perfectly honest, I don't think any of this stuff that's coming out about them is new. I think this
Yeah,
has been going on for decades. They have Donald Trump to thank for bringing this all to the surface, to exposing the wound, exposing the corruption because of how loud and how stupid he is. And they were dumb enough to stick with him and support him. Donald Trump's brought a lot to the surface, a lot of criminality, a lot of corruption. And again, I don't, it's just more stupid now and more exposed now, but I think this stuff has been going on a long time. So we may have to thank Donald Trump for bringing this to the surface so we can actually do something about it.
yeah, I do think that a lot of people they knew what was going on. And I do think people tell themselves whatever it is that they need to tell themselves so that they can sleep at night.
Right.
And I think a lot of that, what was going on, I think like Merrick Garland is like one of those people who tells himself that he is not acting. And the reason that he's doing that is because he doesn't want to divide the country or cause an uproar or whatever it is. I do think that he is telling himself that. And I don't know if he believes it or not, but I think that's what allows for him to be partisan for the sake of not being partisan, which is the craziest thing that he's doing. And I think a lot of people in Congress, they feel the same way. Like, well, we can't delegitimize the courts. So maybe I'm not going to talk about that. And I do think that once investigations start, hearings start, people will be more willing to come forth. I don't know what it is about Republicans, but they always need permission.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris unless Liz Cheney gives a permission structure for them to do that. They're not going to, like this policy unless a Republican steps up and say, yeah, we can do it this one time. We can go for it this one time. They need permission to do what they know is right. They need permission to fight against something that's wrong. They need permission to speak up. It's, I think maybe that's why they were so easily manipulated and taken over by Trump, is because it's already ingrained in them that you have to go along with the program unless you get permission to do otherwise, which I don't understand that.
Well, Donald Trump is so easily manipulated, and all the evil people around him had him say the things that he said and do the things he did. And these were all the things that people wanted to hear. That's
Yeah,
that's the mistake a lot of people make. If they hear what they want to hear, immediately they think it's right, whether it is or not. And they all got caught up in this. They're all bought into Donald Trump. They enter into this cult, and now they're too proud or too stupid to step away from the situation when all is lost. Donald Trump cannot win in 2024. He cannot do it. There's just no way, no path to it. And the polls can tell us whatever the fuck they want. But I'm going to be very angry after the November 5th election if I'm right and Kamala wins decisively or even a landslide.
Yeah.
We got to really take a hard look at the media for lying to us and not knowing for the last 2 years.
I think the propaganda period needs to be investigated because anything like I don't like watching it, but I have seen some Russian television, like their outlets.
Hmm.
There's no difference, I kid you not, between them and Fox News. I don't even think like Newsmax and OAN, like they're bad, but it's just kind of like the level that Fox takes it is completely it's a whole different level on its own. And they know that they can do that. They're not separated between journalism and like opinion shows. They're all looped together. And that's how they trick people into thinking that they are a legitimate news outlet and that they can trust the information that they're getting there. Because you're just poisoning the minds of the American people, and sometimes people are in a vulnerable situation, so they're looking for something to grab onto, or they're looking for a sense of community. And if you have somebody like, hey, come with me to this MAGA rally, and people are like hooping and hollering, they like your MAGA shirt, you're cool people, are you coming to the next party, are you doing this, then they get that sense of belonging that they were missing. And I think that's how they get swept up in it. And they need the correct information instead of being lied to and manipulated. It's insane. I
Which,
know that James Garfield, he is like the one that said like the truth will set you free,
yeah,
but first it make you miserable. And I think that when it comes to MAGA, that would be something to keep in mind, that when you recognize what's going on or when you wake up to what's going on, it's gonna suck because
yeah.
you're gonna have to look around and see all the relationships that you blew, and you're going to have to see where your life is now. So even though it's freeing, it's going to suck to regain all of that you lost. And that's like one of his quotes that when I look at MAGA and I think about it, and I know the people that who will wake up and like try to recover from it, it's going to suck for them like big time.
Yeah, but how do they come back from that after all this time and sticking with it to the end? How do they redeem themselves? I just don't see them being able to do that. Who's going to ever trust the fuckers again?
I don't know. You know how last time we were talking and I told you about Mitt Romney and him saying he would have to flee the country because he's on Trump's enemy list?
Yeah.
He did an interview with some like conservative young people. I don't know what it was called. And they were asking him like, how could you vote for Donald Trump? Like they were asking him that. And
Good question.
he sat on that stage and he was like, well, I did vote to impeach him twice. And like, these are young people. They're looking at him like, this makes absolutely no sense why you're not endorsing Harris when you're going to have to literally flee this country. And he said that I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for. You can kind of like take that how you want to take it, wink, wink. Like that's what he said. And then the next thing that he said after that was, after this, the Republican Party is going to need to rebuild. And I need my reputation in order to help that happen, or
Your
something to that.
reputation sucks because you followed a goof fucking ball.
I
I
was
mean,
thinking the same thing. I was like, reputation. The Republican Party has trashed your reputation. Liz Cheney is different because she came out like hardcore. Like, this man is evil. This is what happened. This is like she called him out every single chance that she had. And she stood strong. He didn't do any of it. He didn't come out and say anything until he said, you know what? I'm not running for reelection. I'm good. I'm good. And then when he wanted to write his book, Bob Woodward, then all of a sudden he wants to start talking trash about Trump.
right.
People are not going to follow you because you're not a leader. And if you wanted to be a leader, that was the perfect chance for you to say, yeah, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris and I'm going to help reshape our party. But he could not bring himself to say that. But that was his answer is hey, I need my reputation to help rebuild the Republican Party.
I would
The
just say,
dumbest.
Mitt, your reputation is one thing. How about just the fucking truth and what's best for the country? Isn't that your fucking job? Isn't that what you're supposed to be doing? I'll tell you this, when it's all said and done, I say nobody in the Republican Party survives to rebuild the Republican Party. And here's why.
Yeah.
All the people that stuck with Donald Trump, they're irredeemable. You might say um, uh, that Adam Kinzinger and Cheney stuck to their guns and they
Yeah.
stood up to Donald Trump and they stood with truth and honesty. And I've said this about those two before. That's great, and we appreciate them doing that. But isn't that the fucking bare minimum we expect out of representatives in the House of Representatives, that they stand up to truth and justice and what's right? They didn't do anything over and above anything they're supposed to do. It's just that everybody else is a piece of shit. But here's the problem with the Republican Party. All the people that stuck with Donald Trump, they're going to be tainted. By 2028, when the Republicans may try to redeem themselves or try to get back in the race, the vast majority of the voting public are going to be millennials and Gen Zs. We know for a fact, based on polls, should we believe them, that they don't cotton to the Republican Party.
Mm-mm.
These young people are not going to embrace Liz Cheney, knowing what she's about, in spite of the fact she showed some integrity. She's going to be thought as old fashioned and not amongst the people they want to vote for. So I don't see any of the Republican Party fucking being surviving this thing. The Republican Party has been burnt down, and whether you stood with integrity or you stood with Donald Trump, you're all fucking done.
I think the supporters, like just the regular citizens, I do think that there will be a way for them to like navigate that minefield and, you know, rebuild those relationships that they lost and maybe like earn back the trust of their family and their friends, because like no matter what they say about people on the left, we're not just complete cold-hearted ice queens or anything like that. And
Speak
then
for
I
yourself.
and I've been seeing a couple of people like starting their own podcasts who were in the MAGA cult and that are like, you know, giving people a safe space to talk about it and work through that. And I do think there's going to be people that's like reaching out to help them rebuild from what they've been through for the past 8 years or whatever it is. With the politicians, though, that's a completely different question because I don't know how they come back from this. They are way too tied to him. There's like, I don't understand why they don't understand that once something's on the internet, it's there forever.
Yeah.
And there's so many times that they're on the media covering for Trump, make excuses for Trump, flat out lying on his behalf. Like that is going to remain in the public eye forever. And as soon as you try to run for office again, well, let's just play up that clip. Let's just do this. You know, it's going to be so much harder for them. There are some people whose reputation isn't as tarnished, but when you have people like Mitt Romney, who is sitting here trying to rebuild a party, nobody is going to respect you because you're a coward. You couldn't speak out against him when it mattered. So if you don't have the respect of the people, nobody's going to follow you. You know, I don't know how he would do that. I really don't.
Mitt
Liz Cheney,
Romney, Mitt Romney just needs to fucking leave.
yeah, I think Liz Cheney would be like a great behind the scenes person, helping people like strategize. But I don't think she's very like, and this is just me personally, but she's not like welcoming or inviting or like I couldn't imagine like walking up to her and giving her a hug. And I hug everybody. She just doesn't have like that ability for people to be approachable to her.
Well,
And I
that's
think they need some younger Republicans in there, not old school, cold hearted people like that.
well, that's the thing about Kamala. She has that going for her. She has a certain amount of warmth, a certain amount of fun, certain amount of
Yeah.
joy. I saw a video yesterday that I just love. She's standing there, and there's a mom and this little uh, 4-year-old
Oh,
girl, got to be
yeah.
4-year-old girl, and she goes, "Kamala Harris, I love you, and when
Yeah.
we fight, we win." And then she runs up and hugs. And he goes, "Well, we just met, but yeah, thank you." But that's what
I,
Kamala Harris exudes, and that's what she gets back in return, and that's something we need in this country.
did you see her on Steve Colbert? Like she sat there with him. She had a beer with him and she just kind of like showed like her regular human side. You know, she just sat there, you know, she hit her talking points. She got serious when she needed to be, but you know, she was just kind of like a normal person. Like I couldn't see, this is so weird why I couldn't see this, but I can imagine Trump like sitting in front of Steve Colbert,
No,
like cracking jokes and drinking a beer. I
no.
couldn't imagine JD Vance doing that. I couldn't even imagine Liz Cheney doing that. Like drink a beer out of a can. No, like you know what I mean? But she is like she does feel like one of the people. And I
You,
think whoever it is that's trying to, I don't think they'll rebuild the Republican Party. I think they'll start another party. I don't know what they'll call it. But whoever it is, they have to be more welcoming, more inviting, and have to be humans. Like these people are stuck in the 1950s. And
yeah,
there's no Gen Z person that's going to want to go back to that.
no,
Even
fuck no.
I don't know that why they feel that the 1950s was so great. But I don't know if you've heard Trump lately, but he's been talking about the 1800s. And I'm sitting here like, I don't know how there's any Black people in that audience because in the 1800s, we were slaves. We had no say so it is. Why we want to go back to the 1800s? But not just Black people, but people in general. We lived like there was wars. I think the Mexican American War, the Civil War, there were wars in the 1800s. And then to top that off, people were living in the slums. There
You know,
was like child labor was rampant. Like these children were working in like factories and coal mines and arsenic, believe it or not, that was kind of like a normal household chemical that people used because they didn't know better. But it's like if you want to take away the Department of Education, you don't want to believe in science. We're going to go back to stuff like that where we, it's just insane to me that he would sit there and say the 1800s
yeah,
and 1,500 people will jump and cheer for that crap. Like,
right.
do you know how it smelled in the 1800s? Did you know what was the indoor plumbing? Like, why do you want to go back to that? But I have to remember that when he says stuff like that, these people have no idea how bad it was at that time. They don't have a concept of what
No,
that was.
oh, yeah, they think it was great back then, and I wasn't in alive in the 1800s, but it wasn't all that fucking pleasant. You know, when I see Kamala sitting on talking to Colbert, it reminds me
Mm-hmm.
of another presidential candidate. It reminds me of Bill Clinton, who also had an ability to be personable and playing the saxophone on Arsenio Hall.
Yeah.
The advantage that Kamala has over Bill Clinton, who won pretty big when he was being himself. The one advantage that Kamala has over Bill Clinton is she's not a lecherous creep. So she's
No,
got that going for her.
yeah, I think that that is like her superpower. And I remember at the DNC when Michelle Obama said they will try to steal her joy. And that's exactly what they attack. They attack her laugh. They
It ain't
want to say
working though.
it's not working at all because when you are that type of person like a bubbly personality, a happy person, that's infectious, that kind of like spreads off of you. But
It
if you're
does.
down, you're miserable all the time, nobody wants to be around that. Don't come killing my vibe with that. It's different if you're having a bad day. All right, I'm here for you. But if every single day all the time you're just negative, down, depressed and all that stuff, get the heck away from me. You need to
Yeah.
go find a professional and you need to pay them for their services because that's not who I am. But I do think that Republicans, they don't understand that. They do not understand it.
I find it interesting how some people will say, well, what do you think about Kamala's momentum? Is it slowing down now? And is that, and I go, this is wishful thinking by the Republicans. It is not slowing down. They said, well, she won't sit down and interview with anybody. And that's what they keep saying. Well, she was on the, the Call Her Daddy podcast. Now everybody's trying to look down their nose at the Call Her Daddy podcast. Well, the thing about the Call Her Daddy podcast, it's been going for a long time
Yeah.
and it has 10 million listeners, and most of them are women from 35 or younger, which is exactly the audience they need to address regarding Roe
18,
v. Wade. What's that?
18 to 35 for her
Right.
podcast.
Right. So she's hitting a big don't talk shit about that podcast because that podcast is very powerful. And then she goes on 60 Minutes. She kills it there.
Yeah.
Donald Donald Trump doesn't show up because he doesn't want to be fact checked. Why would you ever think that you could go on 60 Minutes and not get fact checked, for Christ's sake? Do you not watch television But then Donald Trump says this, and again, this is more gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, Kamala was just incoherent there. They just did some skillful editing to make her look presidential. Please, motherfucker. That is so weak and so fucking lame. I cannot believe it.
Now he's talking about taking their broadcasting license away too. It's just a bunch of crap. But
Yeah.
when they don't understand, like when Kamala Harris hits these podcasts, she is very strategic when she does that.
Yeah.
She didn't know that going on Howard Stern and talking trash about Donald Trump was going to get under his skin. She knew that. But his reach and his audience, those males that Trump typically would reach out to, them hearing her opinion, her side of it, especially when she was talking about Medicare covering your in-home care costs. I mean, man or woman, if you have a parent who is aging, they will look at that like, oh my God, that's a really good idea. And Trump just sits around and just bashes people the whole time. And then when she hit the daddy podcast, same thing. These are the women that she's targeting. Donald Trump went on a podcast with some butt sniffing kid. And that what did that have to do with anything?
It didn't
Absolutely
accomplish anything.
no. He just went there and that was it.
Well,
He's
like
going to
it,
California this weekend as if his butt don't have nowhere else to be. California?
yeah, that's a waste of time. You're not going to win California, no matter what. But you talk about strategy with Kamala Harris. She goes on Call Her Daddy to reach young women.
Yeah.
She goes on Howard Stern to reach middle-aged to young men. She's
Mm-hmm.
hitting them right where they live. They ain't watching ABC News. They're listening to
Right.
Howard Stern, and the women are listening to Call Her Daddy. And then, like you say, the strategy, she's got to somehow impact the older people, my age and older, and
Yeah.
coming out with this idea that we want to expand Medicare so that it will cover people getting help while they're at home. You have to understand how these nursing home situations work. If you've got an older parent or grandparent and they just can't do for themselves anymore, the only option is to put them in a nursing home. Now, if you're going in a nursing home, you better be fucking rich because it
Yeah.
costs $7,000 a month for whatever, and it's crazy. And no, not many old people have that kind of money. So the other option is you can't afford it. So then the county pays for it, but they drain you of all your dignity. They take your house, they take your money, they take your income, and they take it all. And they put you in a room, they feed you, and they take care of you. And that's kind of questionable. So, what Kamala Harris is saying, we should let these people stay at home as long as they can. If they can't do for themselves, you can't expect family members to do it all the time because they have jobs and they have families. So, if we could
Mhm.
expand it a bit, and this has always been something that's bothered me, even when I was young. The fucking thing about it is you've got elderly people who've done the right thing their whole life.
Yeah.
They paid their taxes. They've done everything they're supposed to do. Now you're going to take them for everything they've got and put them in a shitty room and treat them shitty. Old
Yeah.
people who aren't recognizing this or don't understand that, they need to pay closer attention. What Kamala Harris is suggesting is earth shattering for elderly people and for the families that try to help them. That was a big deal, and I think that's a big deal, and it's going to get a lot of elderly people look into Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know like Ed, he talks about the gilded age.
Yeah.
On that it when you they just the halves, just like the they can every and
We're having a little problem with the internet again, and that works out because we're getting toward the end.
all that they're paying.
Well, that was weird. We got shut down.
Okay, can you see now?
I can't see you now. Okay, I can see you now. As I said, we've been having trouble with the internet, and I don't know
Okay.
if it's on your end, probably my end, because I'm having to fuck around and jerry rig this a little bit. But we are coming to the end.
Um,
Why don't you go
I'm
on
on.
what you were responding to what I said about Kamala Harris's care at home? Why don't you repeat that? Because I don't think we got most of it.
Yeah, so it just depends. Like if your family has extra money a month, they can like if there's a nursing home for $2,000 a month, but the county is only going to pay for $1,000 a month. You need a way to cover that additional $1,000 a month to get you in that good nursing home.
Right.
And how many families have an additional $1,000 laying around somewhere to put you in an additional home? My TT lives in a very nice complex, but I like out of each one of my paychecks, automatically like $200 goes into her account. And then I have two brothers that does the same thing to cover what she can afford versus the difference that's in there. But it's just kind of like when we start thinking about like a nursing home for her and for my mother, it's going to be far more than that. So then the conversation turns to, well, who is Titi going to live with? Who is mom going to live with? Because
Right.
there's no way we're going to afford to keep them in like a dignified situation where like my TT now she can play bingo, have fun. They have like community houses, all this cool stuff there. But then you can look at other senior complexes and they are absolutely nothing like that.
Right.
And I feel bad for people who that's all they can afford. But when you have someone who is like thinking about them spending their last few days in dignity, living their lives, kind of having a little bit of fun when they can, and not having the stress and worry. It's like they earned that. Why should they have to go out just like struggling like that? And for her to say that, she's speaking to the older crowd. And then when she hit up Steve Colbert, like she spoke to a whole different crowd, the late night comedy crowd. And
Right.
I think that was smart too, her sitting up there drinking a beer. Like, I'm not going to forget that. I thought that was so badass.
It was pretty funny. It was good. We're going to wrap things up, but I just want to give you a heads up, old soul.
I have one thing that I had to say. I wanted to get your take on this and the
Okay.
audience too.
Okay.
So you know Trump raised all of that money for the hurricane victims, and nobody knows where that money went.
No.
I think, and I could be wrong, but this is what I think. Oh my God, I'm thinking because his Mar-a-Lago is in Florida, and I know that part of the storm, I don't think it caused any damage to Mar-a-Lago, but I do think like that was like one of those areas. I'm wondering if he has taken that money and he is going to try to like donate it to himself somehow for Mar-a-Lago, like work it in like that somehow. Because other than that, there should be a paper trail, and I couldn't find any. And believe it or not, there's no journalist that's reporting on that. So I
Yeah.
was wondering if maybe he could try to like file a claim and use the money that he raised under the guise of Mar-a-Lago needing repairs or something like that. What do
Uh,
you think?
I'll give you another take on that. I don't think he raised $25 million at all. I think he just said that to make it look good.
Uh,
And the way we will know that is at the end of the month when the FEC does a report on donations. We'll find out if he really got 25 million. And I'd be surprised if he did. I don't think so.
I didn't even think about him having to report that.
Well, if it's going to his campaign, it's got to be reported. And they're going to have some paper trail, as you said. And at the end, every time he told us he got these big fundraising efforts, when it came down to it, you found out, well, they were kind of promises if this and if that. He never actually got the money. I don't think he got $25 million. And he'll find a way to grift as much money as he can.
That's
But
not campaign money though. That was the money that he raised for like GoFundMe and stuff for the hurricane. Where did that money go? And I'm thinking he's going to use that to say he had to make repairs to Mar-a-Lago.
I still don't think he got it. I'd love to see the GoFundMe. I mean, he says anything. He'll over exaggerate virtually anything. I don't think he got it, but it'll be interesting to find out. I just want to say one thing. We were talking about elderly people and being able to stay home
Yeah.
and not go into nursing homes. Just so you know, just so it's a head up. I never told you this before, but At 64 years of age, sometime down the line, I'm not going to be able to do for myself. I'm not going to have in-home care. I'm coming down to Vegas and I'm living with Old Soul. She lets anybody move in and I'm fucking moving in. So make plans, get a room because I'm going to need it.
Come on, you welcome. Everybody welcome. Well, wait, I'm talking to an audience of people. Scratch that. Most of y'all is welcome.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we appreciate those folks listening and putting up with some of the technical difficulties. We appreciate Old Soul for coming in. Um, we hope you have a great day. And again, we will talk to you tomorrow.